Thank you, Deputy President. It won't surprise anyone here that the Liberal Democrats don't like taxes. We've consistently opposed increases in the burden Victorians bear for the ever-expanding size of government. You might think that our decision on this legislation was a foregone conclusion. It wasn't that simple, though. We had to give some considered thought to this bill. While we will always oppose an increase in the overall tax burden, we aren't opposed to the tax system being more efficient. All taxes are bad, but some are worse than others. If you hang around in libertarian circles and speak about your political philosophy with friends and strangers, it's a bit of a cliche for someone to inevitably state, "What about the roads? Who will pay for them?" Indeed, this is a good point. An idea would suggest that people who use something should pay for it. A road user charge would, in principle, be closer to that ideal. And the Liberal Democrats do, in principle, support the idea of a road user charge. What we don't support, however, are an overall increase in tax and market distortions. I can appreciate that there are valid concerns that this bill attempts to address. Fuel excise tax was supposed to be a levy that funds roads, and electric vehicles are currently able to avoid this tax. This is a valid point, and as the fleet of electric vehicles slowly replace those powered by the internal combustion engines, this could create issues in the future. Certainly it could become a regressive policy, similar to solar panel subsidies for homeowners, where people who can afford an electric vehicle get a free ride and the other people pay the taxes to fund our roads. This new tax, however, does not balance these concerns. It seems a lot more like a rushed attempt to bring a federal tax revenue stream into the state government's domain. There are other issues with this new tax. It seems like it will cause significant issues for dealerships that will have to calculate distance travelled and pay the tax for the very small amount of distance travelled for test driving. As we have seen with some of the new tax measures announced in the budget, they seem particularly poorly thought out. The government hasn't engaged with the relevant sectors, and there are a range of issues that seem unanticipated. As with the new taxes in the budget, they try and take the new revenue and then throw money at the problems that they are causing. Like a doctor that pushes you down the stairs and then bandages your broken arm isn't really a good doctor. There are also border issues. It seems that there isn't a solution for people who live on the border. They'll be paying a Victorian tax for driving on New South Wales or South Australian roads. When we asked the government about this in a bill briefing, there seemed to be a bit of hand-waving response about how New South Wales is considering a similar scheme and this would be sorted out at some time in the future. Another major issue with this bill is the impact that it will have on regional owners of plug-in hybrid vehicles. There is a larger incentive for regional commuters to own a hybrid vehicle over a pure electric vehicle to overcome the lack of charging infrastructure and range anxiety. As regional Victorians typically travel longer distances, it doesn't take much for hybrid vehicle owners to be paying more tax than road users driving either an internal combustion engine or an electric vehicle. Once again, regional Victorians have the worst impacts. The Greens have been quite public in their lobbying of the crossbench to oppose this tax, and it's probably not a big ask to encourage a Libertarian to oppose taxes. But there is one section of the public letter that Dr. Ratnam published that is notable. In reference to an article in the Guardian, the letter stated, I quote, "Governments who are taxing EVs instead of introducing proper road user charging are actually entrenching the interests of big corporates over ordinary people." End quote. This seems a little strange to me. The Greens like to make claims about corporate welfare frequently, but there really should be small text at the bottom stating terms and conditions apply. They love corporate welfare. They call for it all the time. Even in this very bill, I wonder if they believe that the existing fleet of electric vehicles are made by workers' co-ops. I would suggest that a large number of them are Teslas or Mitsubishis. A large corporation, which they would be happy to provide more government infrastructure or possibly subsidies to encourage more of them. And then if you look at the renewables industry, the wind turbines and solar panels aren't constructed by gnomes at the North Pole, and a lot of the infrastructure, which the Greens always want more of, is subsidised by the taxpayer and are owned by large corporations. Stockyard Hill Wind Farm, jointly owned by the Qatar-based Nabras Power, and Xinjiang Goldwing Science and Technology, which is a Chinese state-owned multinational, I could go on listing the various corporations that own large renewable assets in Australia to make the point, but anyone with an understanding beyond the placards at a climate change rally would be well aware that these companies, these corporations, own a lot of the gas power plants. I could easily spend another 10 minutes pointing out these issues, but I'll leave it there and make some further comments on the amendments in committee stage. In conclusion, we should be sceptical of any industries looking for taxpayer handouts, and this bill will likely add to the overall tax burden of Victorians. The Liberal Democrats oppose this bill. Being a libertarian is sometimes described as like being the only sober person in the car and no one will let you drive. The government is driving us into the dark.